Hi. So, if you're about to embark on imperialism, there's a really nice set of information for you that we've created. So, I want to walk you through some of it. So, we're on the Annex page, and I'm going to scroll down to the Imperialism Project, and we're going to start with Article 1. And you can see that the teachers' names are mostly hyperlinked, and those links will take you actually out to the assignment. One thing that's going to make your life a whole lot easier if you're working on this is make sure that you are signed in to your Google account, because there are a number of things here that are actually only available to New Canaan Public Schools students and teachers. So work within the domain and be signed in. That's going to make your life a whole lot easier. All right, for the next one is where we start thinking about the big questions, the overview. And before you get started, you really have to understand your country, what it was called then and now, because it may have shifted. The name of your country might have shifted several times. Where it's located, continent obviously, but also neighbors are important. Borders change, so it's important for you to know that. When your country is colonized, and there may be more than one period of colonization, who colonized it, and there may be more than one person or country that colonized it, and how's your country doing these days? I mean, is it in turmoil? Is it not in turmoil? So I know that your teachers have approached this a number of ways, but one of the things you really kind of need to do right away is get the lay of the land, like what's going on there now. So before you even go back into time as to how it got to where it is now, you just need to understand where it is now. So one strategy I have used, and it doesn't work all the time, but it is kind of a fun strategy, is to just hashtag your country, do hashtag your country and search Twitter for it. And if it's in turmoil or there's a lot going on right now, or some major news stories, you'll get kind of to find out what people are talking about that's happening in your country. There is a really lovely portal called kiosco.net. Not every country appears here, but it's kind of a way to get the lay of the land, the headlines from your newspaper on that day. So I like that, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Clearly, most of the newspapers are going to be in the native language, so you can use Google Translate or Babelfish or one of those tools to really be able to help you translate that. So that's that. Once you know what the major news stories are, then I would recommend that you go to national newspapers, and that's a database that we have in our database list. And you can search by location, so that's very helpful. Obviously, this is a blank search for Uganda and location. I'm not looking for any major news stories because I don't have the major news stories to look for. But what you should do is pretty much enhance a lot of what's happening in here. So you're going to add in, the key terms, keywords from your headlines that you've noticed either through Twitter or through kiosco.net or from some other news agency that you happen to be glancing and looking at your country, so you can find out what's going on there now. Notice that there are a lot of filters and delimiters that will enhance your search, so really take a look at all your options here. If you have a political leader who's in the news, then you should look up that person. Obviously, locations, we've already covered that in our original search, but you can look for locations down there, etc. Now I want you to kind of go and get some statistical overview, like general reference book stuff. Like what does the reference book say? It's one thing what the news says, it's another thing what the reference book says, so I want you to have both of those experiences. So you're kind of stepping back and doing the more encyclopedic thing, and that's where we're going to go to Gale Virtual Reference Library, because that includes the book Countries and Their Cultures. You'll see here that you have a link to the Gale Virtual Reference Library. You have password information here, and here's how to cite countries and their cultures. So all those hyperlinks are going to be helpful for you. Those will link you to videos and so forth and so on. The final database I want to direct you to is called Global Issues in Context, and that's extremely useful. It really focuses on trying to deliver a more international perspective to world issues. So it's not just the U.S. perspective, but they have specific language. They really try to shed the basically American lexicon around research, and I really appreciate it for that, and I think you'll find it very helpful. I created a nice 3-minute tutorial, tried to make it as concise as possible on how to search it efficiently. I strongly recommend using the advanced search features, and that tutorial will walk you through that. And there is instructions on how to cite it. All right, that's a really comprehensive overview. It's a great starting point. Then what you need to do is kind of go back in time and figure out, wait, imperial what? So now we can kind of start looking through in more detail. And one of the things I like about books is that books, particularly like a history of book, and we have lots of those on all of the countries you guys are researching, and we have them both in print book. I would show you one, but I don't have one because I'm at home. We have them in print book, and we also have them in ebook format. So if you don't make it to the library to actually pull one off the shelf and go check it out at the end of the day so that you can have it back there first thing in the morning at 7:30, it's okay, because we have them available in ebook, and you can actually access them on here or on the desktop. So they're very helpful. I have added, just to simplify your life, the call numbers for most of the countries you guys are researching. This is really critical. This is how you download the Destiny Quest app, and honestly, there is no easier way to search for ebooks in the catalog, or for materials on the shelf for that matter, other than the Destiny Quest app. It is awesome. I strongly recommend it, but there are some steps to downloading it. Once you do this once, you never have to do it again. So the people who ran out of space on their phone and chose to delete that instead of a couple of photos may want to go back and put it back on again. If you have any questions about how to use the Destiny Quest app, this is a fairly lengthy tutorial. Feel free to stop it at any point, but it will kind of get you through the initial process. I really want to stress that we have a lot of ebooks for this project. If you just look through this list here, this is a pretty comprehensive list of ebooks, and these will all serve our needs. When I say the history of books, I love that they are chronologically arranged, so the part about imperialism is probably going to be concentrated in a short number of pages. You know, maybe somewhere between 5 and 12 to maybe 30 pages at the very, very, very most, depending on the size of the book. That's going to be really useful, because that will kind of explain. Remember that imperialism, like, people had an interest in a place and they came and took over, and there's a reason for that. And then one of the search terms, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but clearly there's like a before, a during, and an after phase for all of these events, and that's why we're looking at them. So those are something to keep in mind, but we really have a fairly comprehensive list of books. All right, for databases and websites, we have a lot, and your needs are going to vary depending on where you are, or what aspect of imperialism you're investigating. So I wanted to break it down for you. First of all, some websites that are really, really useful. So those are there. And they're all in the online catalog as well, so you're not confined to that. But for databases, the overview today, I've given you a few, and I've already mentioned some of them, including global issues and context, and there's instructions there. The backstory, like the historical part, the real imperialistic part, that you're going to go to either ABC Clio Modern History or the History Reference Center. Those are really going to be very helpful for you. Then for political analysis, those are going to be the more scholarly resources, the academic journals, and we have a number of databases that will get you there, except for global issues and context, which really just kind of covers your bases all the way across. There's one thing I want to point out for you in world geography, the facts and figures piece. You're going to be needing to get some statistical information about your country. That facts and figures piece is going to be really helpful, but also the websites that I mentioned at the top of this page, the CIA World Factbook, super, super useful. I think you can probably get most of your stuff between those two places. Very helpful. All right, moving right along. So search strategies. There are so many ways to say imperialism, and the best way to say imperialism is to look for the search term independence, because independence implies independence from what? From the imperial control. And whereas you know, imperialism can be said, colonization, decolonization, empire, imperialism. There are so many ways of saying it. I did do a word cloud of a number of ways to say it. These are some helpful search terms, but honestly, independence is awesome because it will lead you straight to a date. Once you have a date, you have a really clear sense of time, and then you can start looking for leaders who are movers and shakers around the time. If you did the Revolutionary Diaries project, this is going to be super, super easy for you because you're revisiting a lot of the same terminology and the same research process, because the object there was, again, to look at a revolution, and the revolution from what? From imperial control. So this should be a little bit familiar to you, and that should facilitate your ability to move through this process at a pretty quick pace. Academic Search Premier, you can see that you can designate geographic terms, and search terms in the title are very helpful, and you can look through the results and you can make further refinements in your search by using that left-hand column over there. And historical newspapers is also going to be really helpful. If you want to know what was going on in the imperial time, imperial control, movement of independence, you can look for all of those search terms here. And then what I would recommend is trying to actually refine your search to a specific publication date era. Once you know when your country went on its quest for independence, you can start looking for articles around that time that were appearing in national newspapers. So those are really helpful also. Okay, so that's that for the sort of imperialism part of the Imperialism Project. I know there are lots of phases to this. In citing sources, I think we've covered this to a large extent. If you need a refresher on anything, your coupon code, EasyBib, Noodle Tools, any of those things, how to copy and paste a citation into the data, into EasyBib, just a refresher on all of that. I don't think I need to spend any time on that. We've been there before. This is really a big deal. If I come into your class and I say, okay, the hard part about this assignment is going to be, and you know how I know that? I know that because that's the text at the end, that's where I get the concentration of text message inquiries. So kids ask questions via text message, and I know what's troubling kids the most because that's what I get that's what the texts that I get most often are about. Wow, grammatically challenging thing to say there. So here's the deal. This is an algebra. I hated algebra. I'm terrible at math. All of those things are true. I don't remember anything from algebra except this. This is awesome. So not only is it going to help you for this project and make your life a whole lot easier, but it's also going to help you in life. I mean, honestly, I use this equation pretty much every day is an exaggeration, but 5 times a week I definitely do. So here's the thing. Market share. It sounds really complicated. It's not. Let's say your country's #1 export is bananas. What you need to know is how many bananas are traded in the whole global economy. You need to know how many bananas get bought and sold. That you need to know. And then you need to know what percentage of that entire banana trade your country's banana export represents. Does that make sense? I hope. You can't answer me. I'm in a video. So if you have questions, text the questions. Speaking of questions that you should be texting, ta-da! Here you go. All right, that's the end of my video, and I hope this was helpful. And if you have questions, text.